Now, we've been going through the Sermon on the Mount. We've been talking a lot about righteousness and purity. And we're to the section where the rubber meets the road. Jesus is going to start talking to us about how this righteousness works in our daily life. And he's going to take on 6 particular topics. Today we look at the first one, murder. And there's adultery and divorce and so on and so on. And as we look at these, we're going to learn rather quickly that Jesus took the Old Testament standards, the law, and he made it personal, and he took it from an external action right to the heart of the matter. He didn't make any fundamental changes to the Old Testament. He didn't make any, I want to say, exceptions either. He actually makes it more difficult for us. See, because initially, it was an action. And we're going to look at today murder, of course, is found in Exodus 20, verse 13. You shall not commit murder. Boom, simple. All that deals with is the external action. I can say I have never murdered. Never went out, I've never killed anybody, justifiably, unjustifiably, during an act of war, aggression, vehicular homicide. I have never taken the life of any other living human being. Therefore, I'm innocent, faultless to stand before the throne. Old Testament style, yes. New Testament times, no. I am not guiltless. Be considered quite guilty in many cases. As we read this, you'll understand why. It starts out in verse 21 of Matthew 5. It says, "You have heard it said to the men of old, you shall not commit murder. And whoever murders shall be guilty before the court. But," here's where it gets difficult, "but I say to you that everyone who continues to be angry with his brother and harbors malice toward him shall be guilty before the court. And whoever speaks contemptuously and insultingly to his brother," says, "Raga," which means you empty-headed fool, you empty-headed idiot, shall be guilty before the Supreme Court. And whoever says, "You fool," shall be in danger of hell's fire. So if your brother has something against you, such as a grievance, a legitimate complaint, leave your offering there at the altar and first go make peace with your brother. Then come back and present your offering. Come to terms quickly, at the earliest possible opportunity, with your opponent at law. If you don't, Jesus goes on to say that you will be found guilty. You will be handed over to the judge, and the judge will hand you over to the guard, and the guard will put you in prison, and you will not come out of that prison until you have paid the last cents. Do you see then how this is more difficult? Do you see how Jesus took a physical act and backed it all the way up and took it right down and drilled and bored right into the core of the matter, where murder comes from? It comes from hatred. It comes from hatred that's in our heart, from malice. So now, can I legitimately say, I am not a murderer? And the answer to that is no. I cannot say that because I have hated someone. I have wished them dead. I have physically confronted people. Sometimes in self-defense and sometimes just because I'm a bully. So I can't say I'm not guilty. Before I could. Now I can't. Jesus has, by taking that external action, making it an internal action, an internal response, he says, while they're physically different, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, they are the same thing. Verse 22 explains this to us. He says, "But I say to you that everyone that continues to be angry with his brother and harbors malice against them shall be guilty." I'm not talking about somebody cuts me off in traffic and I'm mad for an instant and I'm over it. I'm not talking about that kind of anger. I'm talking about the kind of anger that festers and boils up and stays with you. The kind of anger that causes you and I to run our mouth. As you see, he goes on to say, you start throwing insults at them and they start throwing insults back at you. It's that kind of anger that we play out over and over and over and over again and again in our minds. Have you guys ever had somebody wrong you and you just not get over it right away? And it sticks with you for a while and you just keep playing it out over and over again. You know, I should have said this to him. That would have showed him. Next time he opens his mouth, boy, he's getting it. And you play that out over and over again. You know, next time I'll be ready for him. You know what? Matter of fact, there's going to be a next time because I'm going to go looking for him now. It's on like Donkey Kong. We're going at it. Talking about that kind of anger. It's that anger that Christ goes on to say you actually go to the point of calling someone an empty-headed fool. Now today we may not call you an empty-headed fool. We may use a different term. But the bottom line is you're still verbally throwing insults at that person. And then they come back with stuff and then you got to fire right back and then they say something and you know, then I'll teach them. I'll post something on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. That'll teach them. And then someone, I mean, it just continues to escalate. Initially, there was the anger. And then it exploded into words. And then we keep adding fuel to the fire with that. And this anger is actually foolish. It is just ridiculous. And we find so many ways to justify our anger. Well, he said it first. Well, she said that, or he done that, or they did this, or... When we're living in that condition, when we're in that state, are we destroying that other person? Yes, we are. We're destroying their character. We are destroying their reputation. We are doing our level best to come back at them verbally and or physically with as much and more than what they gave us. Murder is the destruction of another person. Physical destruction of another person. And this is why Jesus says it's the same thing, because we are now intent on destroying that other person. And that destruction, that intentional destruction, that rehearsing, if you will, and nursing the hurt in our head and in our heart, you know what's happening? The very last verse, Jesus talks about us being put in prison until every last cent is paid. That takes us, and that puts us in the prison. Well, how does it put me in a prison? You see, because my life is now consumed and controlled by my hatred for that other person. So to hate is to put myself in prison for murder. Now, does this mean that we should just, since I've lost my temper and I'm angry and I've let it fester and it's boiled over and I'm hanging on to it, I'm not ready to forgive him yet because pride says I gotta hang on to this and I gotta fight back. I should probably, since I'm guilty before God, just go ahead and kill him, right? Just go ahead and get it over with. Well, this probably wouldn't be a good idea because, see, man, we have a law about thou shalt not murder. You end up in prison. And to make that situation worse would be to kill them. So just because we're guilty emotionally or spiritually does not mean that we need to be guilty physically as well. And this sinful anger, as we are in that prison, is going to rob us of some of the most important and most precious things in our life. It's going to keep us from our fellowship with God. How's that possible? Because instead of truly praying for our enemies like we should, and we will get to that, we're telling God how mean they are. And we even get mad at God for letting something like that happen to us. puts us in jail. And it keeps us held up, and it robs us of our fellowship with each other. It goes on to say, so if you present your offering while you're there, remember that your brother has something against you, a grievous or legitimate complaint. Leave your offering and first go make peace. This hatred has tainted our heart so much and has interfered with our fellowship with God to the point that God says it would be better for you to not come and worship until you have this resolved. Because that malice and that hatred, as it grows in our life, turns to bitterness and unresolved grievances. And when that bitterness has taken root in our lives, it makes it impossible to live out the two greatest commandments. And that's to love God and love each other. So how is that impossible? It's actually extremely impossible. Because we display our love for God and we exhibit the forgiveness we have received by giving it to others. And if that hatred is in my heart, that murderous hatred is in my heart, how in the world can I be giving love and forgiveness if that hatred is still there? If that bitterness and that grievance is still there? And Jesus has already made it quite clear that until we forgive, we will stay in that prison. It's a self-made prison. It's one that we can open easily. But that lock of pride, or that door handle of pride, it's not even a lock. You just have to turn it, shut it off. You see, because more often than not, the only reason we don't forgive is because of our pride. We won't forgive that other person. We won't do it. Because if I forgive them, that means I'm letting them off the hook. No, it doesn't mean you let them off the hook. It means you let yourself out of prison. You let yourself out of jail. You let yourself off the hook. Because that other person may not even care one iota that you're mad at them like that. It may have absolutely no effect on their life. When we are in this state of anger, when we are in that prison, and there are people, Christians, who have been walking around in this hate prison for years and years. They have what I call a floating anger about them. Now, what is floating anger? Floating anger is an unjustifiable rage. It's unjustifiable. Here's how it plays out. You go to work tomorrow. You're at your job, you're doing whatever it is you do. Staying at home, whatever the case may be. Something happens. Somebody says something. Somebody does something against you. Hurts you and harms you in some way. But because I don't deal with it, because I don't take care of it right then and there, what happens? Is go on home. And the next person that says something to me, boom, I'm on them like ugly on an 8. I am ripping into them like I own them. Am I mad at them? Maybe a little bit. Maybe something didn't go the way it should have been. Maybe it wasn't exactly like I wanted it to be. But still, it's nothing like that. What happened is this thing back here, this situation that I didn't deal with, that I didn't forgive, forget, and get on past, has kept me locked up, bound up, and worked up in such a way now that I have what's called floating anger. And I start taking it out on people around me. And this can happen over years and years. Let's say you ladies were dating some dude back in the day, and this guy turned out to be a fool, an idiot, a jerk. He ran around on you. You get to a next relationship, same thing, the guy was a schmuck. You get to another one. Man, you guys just can't find the prince because of all the frogs, right? You finally find one, and he's great. But because of hurts throughout the years, and poor choices and bad relationships, what happens? This new guy that's the prince gets to pay for all the pigs that came along before him. And that works both ways with guys as well. You got a girlfriend, she ran around on you, found a new man on Facebook, took off. Every time, if you don't deal with it, every time the new one is on Facebook, you're going to be looking over her shoulder and wondering, who's she talking to today? What's the deal? Is it because they've done something wrong? Is it because the prince done something wrong? No. It's because we didn't deal with that situation back here. We didn't forgive them. We didn't let it go. So now, I have this trust issue. I have this hate issue. And instead of projecting my faith and love and grace and mercy, what I'm doing is I'm projecting hate, mistrust, and all that forward. And the Bible makes it really clear. We're to be building each other up, not tearing each other down. So when that hate is in our life, we become destroyers. This is why Jesus, as he's going to go through this, will tell us that we must forgive. I mean, we even had recited the Lord's Prayer today. You guys know how that goes on, right? Forgive us our debt as we forgive those. As we forgive. That makes the two very linked. So it's when we don't, that I'm bound up in the past. I'm in this prison. In these bars, imaginary bars, and these walls that I build to defend myself and to protect myself are the very walls and bars that will keep me from moving forward in my fellowship with others and my fellowship with the Lord. Now, does this mean that you forgive them, you let it go, it's over with, water behind the bridge, it's all gone? Does this mean I go back there? Of course not. There we go, once bitten, twice shy. Jesus even tells us to be gentle as doves, but wise as serpents. No, you do not go back to that person. You do not go back to that situation. This is why we drop it, leave it, and move forward. To keep going back to it is to invite that hate and the anger and those issues to get worse. The Lord says we gotta love them. The Lord does not say we have to be friends with them. As Mindy likes to say, you gotta love them, but you don't have to like them. I don't have to do what it says in the Old Testament. As a dog returns to its vomit, I don't have to go back to that mess. The whole point of moving forward and being free is to move past it, to learn what you can learn and go forward. To not do so leaves us stuck back in 1980 something, 1990 something, 2000 and something for the younger folks because of this issue back here. See, 20 years has passed, but your heart is still stuck back here. Why, oh, why would we want to live like that? Live in this prison. Live back here. Because this situation that was never resolved, never addressed, still has a grip on me. And as I move forward through time, my heart's back there. I'm not satisfied. I'm upset. I'm angry all the time. And those prison walls continue to build. And it happens more and more because I start lashing out at more and more people because I just keep, rah, 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 because of that floating anger. And what ends up happening is I keep pushing more and more people away until there's nothing and no one left. All because of hate. All because of pride. And we let those things control us and bind us up. Jesus says it's not to be like that. He has blessed us with His Word. He has blessed us with His presence. He has blessed us with prayer. He has blessed us with worship and praise. All these things are there to set us free. And we're going to look at in the not too distant future about praying for our enemies. And it's going to be a pretty similar sermon because we've got to learn how to pray for them, because that's going to soften our heart and it's going to help us to get past it. And the Lord never, never intends for our lives to be static, for us to be stuck in a prison. Continually want us to go and grow in His grace and knowledge. And that's almost impossible when we're stuck back here with this situation back in the day. So we're going to take a few minutes today, and we're going to pray before we close up. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes of quiet time, if you will, to pray, to talk to the Lord. Ask Jesus, Lord, is there something in my heart? Is there hate in my heart? Is there anger, malice that's keeping me from you and keeping me from the present situation, the present people in my lives? So with every head bowed and every eye closed, let's take a few minutes and just do some serious business with the Lord. If there's anyone who's struggling with this, just raise your hand and I'll pray for you. I won't call your name out. I won't embarrass you for any reason whatsoever, but I will remember you in my personal prayer time. I will keep you in my heart. Thank you. I see your hands. Thank you. Lord, I pray that you would put us all on a path to forgiveness. A path where we can release the past. A path where we can start to forgive ourselves and forgive those that are around us. Lord, I pray that you would help us. You know better than any of us. You even know better than ourselves how our past has affected our future and our present. You know how we've held on to anger and hatred. You know, Lord, how quickly it can destroy our life. So, Lord, please help us. Help us, oh Lord, to get past it. In Jesus' name, amen. If y'all would stand up.